Hello everyone and welcome to the second lesson of our beginner yoga series. My name is Claudia from Yoga for Everybody and I'll be taking you through today's practice. So today's class we will build on the postures that we learned in our first lesson. So if you missed it, you're more than welcome to go back and check it out, or you can just jump straight in with this one. So as always, if you enjoy this class, please give me a like, subscribe to the channel, maybe follow me on Instagram, connect with me on Facebook. I'm always happy to receive comments about the classes, so do let me know what you think. And I hope you enjoy it. Let's begin. So we're going to begin in a kneeling posture today. So come onto your mat, sit back on your heels, have your knees together, and then just have your hands on your knees or just maybe on your thighs somewhere. Relax your shoulders, close your eyes for a moment, and just take a nice deep inhale in through the nose if you can. And then a complete exhale through the nose. So I'm not introducing any particular breathing techniques just yet. We will cover them later on in the series. For now, all I'd like you to do is just try and work with my breathing cues. So work with your own breath. I will be telling you when to breathe in and when to breathe out. So see if you can try and follow that as much as possible. Try not to hold your breath too much in the postures. Breathing is key. So take another inhale in through the nose. And exhale. And then open your eyes when you're ready. Bring your hands in prayer in front of your chest and maybe set an intention for today's practice. And then on an inhale, lift your arms up, stretch through the fingertips. Exhale, join your palms together, bring them back down through heart center. Inhale, lift your arms up. Exhale, join your palms together. Bring them down through heart center. One last time, inhale, lift your arms up, maybe follow up with your gaze. Exhale, bring your hands back down through heart center. Inhale, lift your arms up. Exhale, drop your right fingertips down onto the mat. Left arm over your left ear, side bend to the right. Inhale, lift both hands up. And exhale, switch sides to left fingertips to the mat, right arm over your right ear. Inhale, lift both hands up, and exhale, release. From here, come into a tabletop position. So have your shoulders over your wrists and your hips are over your knees, your shoulder width apart with your hands, hip width apart with your knees. Turn your fingers out ever so slightly to help with the external rotation of the shoulders. Engage your core muscles, so tuck your belly in, suck your belly button towards your spine. Back is nice and long so you're not sagging, you're not rounding. Your toes can be tucked or you can release them. We're just going to hold this modified plank for another breath or a tabletop position. And exhale. So we're going to continue warming up the spine with a few cycles of cat-cow. On an inhale, tuck the toes, lift your chest forwards and look forwards. Exhale, release the toes, round the spine and look down, bringing your chin towards your chest. Inhale, arch the spine, lift your chest and look forwards, tucking the toes. Exhale, release the toes, round the spine and look down. So really feel this in between the shoulder blades. One more time, inhale, arch the spine, tuck your toes, look forwards. And exhale, round the back and look down. And by the way, you don't have to follow it with the toes. It's just something nice that I like to do. You can keep your toes tucked or released. Inhale, come into a tabletop position. And we're going to try a balance from here. So on an inhale, you're going to stretch your left hand forward, right leg back, and I'd actually recommend to tuck your toes here for a bit of balance. So just make sure your shoulders again are over your wrists. Left hand forward, right leg back. Now engage your belly muscles, your core muscles here. Make sure you're not sagging. This might be enough for you today, or if you want to, try a full balance. See if you can lift your left hand and your right foot off the floor, maybe until your right leg is parallel with the floor in your left arm. Gaze directly in front of you. Inhale, exhale, release, and we'll switch sides. So right hand forward, left leg back. You can keep your toes and your fingers on the floor, or if you think you can maintain the nice straight spine, see if you can maybe lift. So the trick here is to pretend that you've got something on your back, like a hot cup of tea that you can't spill. So we're not moving our hips, we're not sagging, we're not rounding. Exhale, release. We're trying to keep the back nice and neutral. Let's do it one more time. So whichever variation you want. Inhale, left hand forward, right leg back, maybe lift. Exhale, release, and switch sides. Right hand forward, left leg back, maybe lift. And exhale, release. One more time, left hand forward, right leg back, lift. Exhale, release. Switch sides, left hand forward, right leg back, lift. And exhale, release. Bring your big toes to touch. Just sit back onto your heels for a moment. Give your wrists a bit of a shake. And from here, we will do the flow that we learned in the first lesson, just to warm up the spine. If you haven't done the lesson, it doesn't matter. Just listen to my cues. So you're in a kneeling position, sitting back on your heels. We are going to be folding forwards into a child's pose. So just be mindful that you may need to have your knees open a little bit if you can't quite lower down into the child's pose with your knees together, whichever variation you want to do. I'm keeping mine slightly apart. On an inhale, lift your arms up and stretch. Exhale, fold forwards, bringing your hands forwards into a child's pose. Inhale, come into a tabletop position. And on an exhale, just hold, making sure our alignment is correct. Inhale, arch the spine and look forwards. Exhale, round the back and look down. Inhale, come into a neutral spine. Exhale, tuck your toes under, lift your hips up into a downward facing dog. So it's the first down dog of the practice. You can have a really deep bend in the knees if you need to, and really focus on lifting your tailbone up towards the sky, and then maybe dropping one heel down on the mat at a time, alternating. If your hamstrings are quite open already, maybe you can drop both heels down onto the mat. Gaze between your legs towards the back of the room. Take a breath in. On an exhale, drop your knees back down onto the mat. Bring your big toes to touch. Sit back in child's pose. Take a deep breath in. And on an exhale, come back into a tabletop position. So we're going to add a few more postures onto this flow. So the next posture I want to demonstrate to you is a cobra. So we're going to come into a tabletop position. Your shoulders are still over your wrists, but you can maybe move your knees back just ever so slightly, so you've got this nice straight line with your spine. You can even lift your feet off the mat. And from here, having the elbows in, so we're going to lower all the way down onto the mat, chest, chin down. And instead of opening the elbows out to the side like you do in a push-up, you're going to keep the elbows in, so like a tricep push-up. And then slowly lower down your chest and your chin onto the mat. Release your legs, straighten your legs and release the toes. have your hands underneath your shoulders, and then really press down with your feet into the mat. This will help you lift the chest forwards into a cobra. So we're not straightening our arms just yet. We're doing a little baby cobra. So you're just pressing into your hands and into the top of your feet and lifting your chest up. So we're trying to lift up from the upper back as much as possible. A common mistake here is to hunch the shoulders like this, so make sure your shoulders are nice and relaxed. You're rolling them back and down. And if you want to check how much of your back muscles you're using here to lift your chest, see if you can maybe lift your hands off the floor. And if you're immediately dropping down, that's telling me that you've got weak back muscles, and we definitely need to work on that, and we will. So the more of these you do, the stronger your back will become. So just exhale, release your forehead down onto the mat, relax everything onto the floor. We're going to try this one more time. So have your hands underneath your shoulders, pressing down with your feet. Inhale, lift your chest forwards. And then exhale, release. One more time, inhale, lift your chest forwards, cobra. And exhale, release. From here, see if you can press down with your hands, tuck your toes, and then come back up into that plank or modified plank position. Hold, and then tuck your toes under and lift up into a downward facing dog. Take a deep breath in down dog. And then start rolling forward, so bringing your weight forwards, roll onto your toes until your shoulders are over your wrists, and then drop your knees down onto the mat, and then chest and chin down, keeping the elbows in. Release the toes, pressing down, inhale, lift into a cobra. Make sure the neck's nice and relaxed. Exhale, lower back down. Tuck the toes under, see if you can press back up into this modified plank. And then downward facing dog. Let's try this one more time. So it's knees, chest, chin down. So take a deep inhale in. Downward facing dog. On an exhale, start bringing your weight forwards until your shoulders are over your wrists. Drop your knees down onto the mat, keeping the elbows in, chest chin down onto the floor. So your legs are sliding back, you're straightening your legs, toes pressing down into the mat, hands underneath your shoulders. Inhale, lift up, cobra. Exhale, release. Inhale, tuck the toes and see if you can press back into a modified plank. And exhale, downward facing dog. And if you notice, I'm adjusting my distance in downward facing dog, so just work at whatever feels comfortable for your body. If you need to bring your feet a bit closer to your body or move them away from your body, you can do. Continue having a bend in the knees if you need to. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Take a deep breath in. On an exhale, just drop your knees back down, sit back onto your heels, come back into a kneeling position, just give your wrists a bit of a shake. So when you first start in yoga and you're not used to doing planks and down dogs, it could be quite strenuous on your wrists, so just make sure you're having breaks and you're looking after your wrists. There's no point in overdoing it because you will cause yourself injury, and it's not doing your bodies any favour really. So just make sure you look after yourself. If at any point you're feeling too tired and you need to have a break, just pause the video, come back to it later. So I'm going to introduce another pose to our practice, which is a low lunge, and then we're going to link everything together into a bit of a flow. So come back onto your hands and your knees into our tabletop position. We're going to take an inhale here, and on an exhale, you're going to step your right foot in between your hands. Now, if you are quite flexible already, maybe you can round the spine and bring your right foot in between your hands. If this is not possible, if your hips are quite tight, if you can't quite get your foot in between your hands, you can use your right hand to guide that foot in between your hands. Another trick, if you've got any props, so I'm a yoga teacher with no yoga blocks, but I do use my child's building bricks sometimes. You can have your hands on the bricks or the blocks or the box or whatever props you've got that are kind of similar to this. And that might just prop you up and help you bring your right foot in between the hands. So play around with this, see what works for you. Once your foot is in between your hands, make sure your right knee is directly over your right ankle, very important. So you can have your fingertips by your sides or you can have your hands on the blocks. From here, move your left knee back until you start feeling a good stretch in your left hip flexor, but not to the point where it's uncomfortable. So it should feel pleasant. And then see if you can also roll onto the area just above your left kneecap to protect the knee. If you're like me and you're practicing on the hard surface, you can also double up on your mat and place your knee on the mat to help, cushion the knee. You can have your left toes tucked and maybe release them for a deeper stretch and just see how that feels. It does help if you've got a mirror somewhere as well to just see if your alignment is correct. But your knee and your foot are about, a hip width apart. Just take a few deep breaths here. Feel the opening in your hips. If you've got a job where you sit down quite a lot, the hips get quite tight, like mine. So this is a really good stretch to just release the tension in the front of the hip flexor. And then you can stay here for a moment, or maybe see if you can start coming up. So bring your hands onto your right knee to start with. See how that feels. Take another breath in. And exhale. And then on the next inhale, maybe lift your arms up. And see how that feels. So your hips are not up here, you're trying to lower your hips, so bring your hips forwards. That really helps with stretching this area here. Lifting the arms up, inhale, maybe gaze up towards your fingertips if your balance permits. And then exhale, release your fingertips back down onto the mat and take a step back with your right leg back into the tabletop position. Ooh, I can really feel the difference between my left and my right hip now after this deep stretch. So we won't normally hold it for as long. So let's try this on the other side. So come into tabletop position again. Get your alignment correct. Take a deep inhale. And on an exhale, step your left foot in between your hands. So I'm not as good at stepping through on this side as you could see. So maybe propping my hands onto the blocks would have helped. Have your fingertips down on the floor, left knees over your left ankle, your toes are pointing forwards, and then just move your right knee back a little bit until you start feeling that good stretch in your right hip flexor. Roll onto the area just above your right kneecap and then maybe release the right toes and just see how that feels. So again, you're about hip width apart with your legs. You can gaze directly ahead of you. You can have your hands on the blocks if you need to. Deep breath in and exhale. And then see if you can move your hands up onto your left knee. See how that feels. So try and make sure you're not moving your hips back. We're trying to sink the hips forwards to really feel that stretch in our right hip flexor. So the front of your right leg here. And when you're ready, inhale, lift your arms up. Maybe gaze up towards your fingertips. And then exhale, release your hands back down. Step your left leg back into a tabletop position. And let's just sit back onto our heels. in a child's pose. So you can have your hands stretching forwards, or you can move your hands by your sides, palms facing down, forehead onto the floor or onto the block, and hips onto your heels, hip bones onto your heels. And then walk your fingertips back towards your body. And to finish off today, let's see if we can turn all these postures that we've learned today and in the last lesson into a bit of a flow. So sitting back onto your heels in a kneeling posture. On an inhale, lift your arms up. Exhale, fold forwards into a child's pose. Inhale, come into a tabletop position. Exhale, hold, get your alignment correct. Inhale, arch the spine and look forwards. Exhale, round the back and look down. Inhale, come into a neutral position. Exhale, tuck your toes under, lift your hips up into a downward facing dog. Take a deep breath in, downward facing dog. On an exhale, start bringing your weight forwards until your shoulders are over your wrists. Drop your knees down, then followed by your chest and chin, so keeping the elbows in. Lower your chest and your chin down. Release the toes, straighten the legs. Inhale, lift up into a cobra. Exhale, lower back down. Inhale, tuck the toes and lift back up into a modified plank. Exhale, tuck your toes under, downward facing dog. Deep breath in. On an exhale, drop your knees back down into a tabletop position. Take a breath in here. Exhale, step your right foot in between your hands, using your props if you need to. Inhale, lift your arms up. Exhale, lower your hands back down. Inhale, step your right leg back. Exhale, tuck your toes under, downward facing dog. Inhale, deep breath in. On an exhale, bring your weight forwards until your shoulders are over your wrists. Take an inhale and then drop your knees down, keeping the elbows in. Lower your chest and your chin down. Inhale, lift up cobra. Exhale, release back down. Inhale, tuck the toes and press back up into a modified plank. And exhale, downward facing dog. Deep inhale here. On an exhale, drop your knees back down into a tabletop position. Inhale. Exhale, step your left leg in between your hands. Inhale, lift your arms up. Low lunge. Exhale, lower your hands back down. Inhale, step your left leg back. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale in downward facing dog. Exhale, drop your knees back down onto the mat. Bring your big toes to touch. And inhale, sit back in child's pose. One deep breath in here. And on an exhale, walk your fingertips back towards your body until you're in a kneeling position. Lovely. So I hope you enjoyed that flow. Do let me know what you think of it in comments. From here, we're just going to sit down onto our bottom, stretch the legs out in front of you, and then lie down on the mat into our final relaxation pose, Shavasana. So really important to take Shavasana after each yoga session. Have your legs straight, let your feet fall out. Have your arms by your sides, palms facing up. close your eyes and just return to the natural rhythm of your breath. So try and work your way up from your toes to the crown of your head, making sure there's no tension in any part of your body. Everything's nice and relaxed. And just notice how you're feeling after today's practice. If you feel like you're holding tension anywhere in your body, try and focus your attention on that area. Take a deep breath in, and on an exhale, see if you can release. And when you're ready, roll onto your right side so you can bend your legs and roll onto your right side and come into a seated position. So come back into our kneeling posture. So back on your heels so you can have your hands in prayer in front of your chest. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the class. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I hope to see you again soon. Namaste.